Hi folks! Today we talk about something that can truly transform your relationships, and that is how to hold space for vulnerable conversations so that you and others are really truly feeling seen and heard. Have you ever been in a situation where you kind of freeze up because someone opened up to you and shared something and you didn't really know in the moment how to hold space for that? Maybe you were not prepared and just didn't know what to do. Or the other way around, that you shared something to someone and really poured out your heart or felt vulnerable about something that wasn't really received. Either way, I know how that feels like. It happened to me and it happens to almost every one of us, really. And this video is really helping you to understand what you can do in these moments. First and foremost, the most important step is being present. Ideally, you're making time for such conversation and truly being with your body and your mind with that person and really tuning in. So there's no distractions, like no phone calls or notifications. Ideally, you turn your phone off, or it's not even on the table, so that you're sharing your presence with the person who you're talking to. Something really interesting to observe is your body language. So are you leaning in? Is your eye contact there? Or are you catching yourself thinking about the next thing to respond? And I encourage you to, if you catch yourself thinking about what to say instead of sharing your presence and listening, actually what you can do is to lean back a little bit, take a deep breath, and then lean back in. And that little movement and taking a deep breath can truly help and support you in being more present. So why is this so important? Being present and sharing this with your verbal and non-verbal communication is so crucial. It really shows the person indirectly that I'm here, I'm listening, you matter to me. And that is the foundation of any vulnerable conversation. I kind of mentioned already the second step, and that is active listening. So active listening really means to not listen to respond, but to listen to understand. Really, really big difference. So instead of jumping in with your story or your solution, instead reflect to them what they just said to you. Someone shares with you, I had a really rough day, my kids are absolutely driving me nuts, I have so much to do, my work is a lot of pressure right now, and I'm just feeling really exhausted. What you do in that moment is to practice listening and reflecting back to them. So what you can say to them is, wow, that sounds really tough. I'm sure it is really difficult to handle the pressure of work and the needs of the kids, and in general all the things that are due to in your household. It sounds extremely stressful, and that it seems like you're under a lot of pressure. Active listening is really about what you hear and validating how the other person feels. So you could say something like, oh, that sounds really rough, or that makes so much sense that you feel that way. Or you could go ask them a question like, tell me more about that. And you could go and ask even more about how they feel and go deeper. So there's multiple ways to go with that, but in overall, you would always want to reflect back to them what you hear, because when you do that, they hear that you actually understood what they say, and that is so much more worth than a fix or a solution or your story. In that moment, that person just wants to be, or most people want to be, just heard and understood, unless they ask for an idea or for your solution or for your thoughts. Then it's a completely different story. But it is always a good thing to first validate them and how they feel. Another way to hold space in a vulnerable conversation when someone shares is encouraging words. Most of the time, people, like I just said, don't want to have a solution, but they just want someone to share their thoughts with. And the most important thing and most powerful thing you can do in such situations is to fuel them with life and tell them that they can do it and tell them they have the strength to overcome a challenge. They are not alone. Maybe you're here to help them with and you're here to listen, etc. So not feeling alone is so crucial for us human beings, that we're not feeling isolated or um, alienated from our challenges. The next communication tool actually comes from my dating coaches that I'm so grateful for I was able to learn from. And that is, if you want to hold space, it is always important that you set a container and think about what you want that container to be like. So if it's you sharing something, you want a specific outcome, for example, someone just listening to you or someone's thoughts, etc., then you should communicate that at the beginning. So you could say something like, hey, I have, like, first of all, you might want to ask if now is a good time. So you ask, is now a good time to ask you something more deeply or ask you a deeper question? And then the person will respond yes or no, maybe later. And well, let's imagine that person says, yes, now is a great time to talk. Then you may want to continue and say, look, I have something on my mind that I really want to share with you, and I would love you to just listen. And at the end, I would love to hear your thoughts. That way, you're setting yourself and the person speaking to up for success, because you're getting your need met to just share everything, and the other person has agreed to your container and is aware that you just want to share for now and then later come to their thoughts or maybe even a solution or whatever. So it is, I think, only fair to set a container so that the expectations are set. Let's imagine someone isn't setting a container with you. Something you can do before giving a solution or before they dive even deeper is to ask them, is it that you currently just want me to listen, or would you like to have a solution to what your current challenge is? And that way the other person can kind of paddle back and think about what they want out of the conversation, and it leads you to a more successful path where both of you are understanding what the expectations are. Another way to create the space for vulnerable conversations is to be the person who leads. Show others what kind of conversations can be had with you by you leading as an example. If you're open and vulnerable, that leads to other people being inspired to open up themselves and feel like they can trust around you, that they can come with like touchy topics themselves and share them with you. And keep in mind that everybody has a different timeline. Only because you share now doesn't mean that other people will do the same thing right away. Things sometimes just take time for people to build up trust, and that is absolutely normal. It should be okay and not an expectation that other people open up right away. It is just something you may want to do in order to inspire that. But for most women, it is very natural for us to share our feelings, to know what we feel, or we express that. And for men, oftentimes it is much harder to express these feelings. They feel them just as much as we do, but oftentimes they don't understand it, what that exactly is. They need more time to reflect on them and to understand what that feeling means or what it is that they feel. And so it is so crucial in relationships to give our men time for them to come to us with the expression. So taking that pressure off of them, and for them allowing our men to come on their own timeline to us, to share vulnerable things and to be open and to express their feelings. I believe we women can be a lot more patient with our men there. So this is just a little bit of my own experience and what I've learned from my my dating coaches, and when I applied it to my life, to the men that I cherish, especially my partner, I saw so much better, beautiful result, not results, but you know what I mean. Like I had much better conversations because there was no pressure for them to come forward. They just did it on their own time, and I really appreciate that because when it happens, it is incredibly nice. It is incredibly touching, and it is raw and authentic, and you can really trust that they come forward with their true hearts and their true feelings because they spend so much more time on reflecting on them and bringing them forward in usually a way that is um, very intentional. I think intentional is the word, and I love that. Two more things that I believe are so crucial in holding space for vulnerable conversations, and that is being really okay with silence. Sit in silence. I know it feels sometimes truly uncomfortable to not respond or not knowing what to respond and to just sit there and not talk. But that is oftentimes the most powerful thing you can do. It is not always needed to respond, it is not always needed to have an opinion, it is not always needed to say anything. But what's the most important thing for most people is to feel not alone. And your presence alone will be already supportive in doing that. Last but not least, don't take it personally, especially if you're in a romantic relationship or are currently dating and you really want the other person to open up to you. Everybody has their own timelines. Even if you're already in a long, amazing partnership, there are still times where we need sometimes time to warm up to a certain topic or to be sharing with us. We are all carrying fears in us that just sometimes need a little bit of time to for us to come out of our little cave and share them with people. It should never be an expectations on others that they should do the same thing. The only thing that we can do really is to accept that, and if it, especially in a romantic scenario, never happens that, or rarely happens when someone is very closed off, then it really is your responsibility to share how you feel about that and communicate it in a safe way and see how that goes from there. The last thing I want to say about this is that what really helped me and made the biggest difference for creating space for vulnerable conversations is for me to take walks and write things down in journal before I have the conversation. I usually made it my habit now to write down what I feel, what I want, and not and what I want is really important and not what I don't get. So I'm always thinking about this is a challenge, but here's the end solution. This is what I want. Focus on always that, because then you stay true to your heart desire and are not blaming anyone. So yeah, so feelings, what I want, and I'm thinking about the container, like what I'd like the person to do, for example, to listen to me or to fully listen and respond with their thoughts, or maybe they have ideas. So I do these. I think about these three things. So it needs me a couple of days, sometimes a week, to respond to someone with a challenge or open up that space to have that conversation. And ever since I've done this, so now 2 years, because I started doing this after working with my dating coaches, it has, all the conversations have gone so much better as if I would have just stumbled into something, and yeah, that was always a bit directionless and messy, and it still can be messy, but now it has much more of a direction and I feel safer to have such conversations too. So definitely try that out, and journal it down or even talk it out with a friend. That helped me too sometimes. and before you actually go into that conversation. Alright, that's it for this video. I'm really excited what you think, and if there's anything that you want to try out yourself, please let me know in the comments. The next video is all about how to create deep, interesting conversations. So in this video you'll learn everything about holding that space, and in the next one you'll learn how to actually cultivate cool conversations that are going deep and are absolutely going beyond any small talk. Alright, talk to you soon. Bye bye.